are now live. Ladies and gentlemen, you're now live.
Well, good morning, everybody. So I believe we're going to open with my oath first and then move into the agenda. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Robinson, are you driving that?
Nicholas Cotton, if he's on, he can guide us. He's on my staff and he has planned everything. Nicholas, are you there?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, Mr. Cotton.
So I will co-pilot this as Clerk Robinson will be administering the oath. Mr. One, you have received your oath electronically via DocuSign. I ask that you please refer to it at this time. Once you're located, let me know. You ready?
It is opening as we speak.
Okay. All right, and now we turn it over to Clerk Robinson to administer the board member's oath. Madam Clerk.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I am administering the oath to Mr. Wan. Is that correct? Is that correct, Nicholas?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. I know y'all got a lot to do, and this oath is pretty long, Mr. Wan. So if you would please raise your right hand. The first oath is the official oath of the member of the County Board of Elections. So if you would raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I, and state your name.
I, Alex Wan,
Do swear or affirm
do swear
that I, as a member of the Board of Elections,
that I will, as a member of the Board of Elections,
duly attend all ensuing primaries and elections
duly attend all ensuing primaries and elections
during the continuance thereof,
during the continuance thereof,
that I will, to the best of my ability,
that I will, to the best of my ability,
prevent any fraud, deceit, or abuse
prevent any fraud, deceit, or abuse
in carrying on the same,
in carrying on the same,
and that I will make a true and perfect return
and that I will make a true and perfect return
of such primaries and elections,
of such primaries and elections,
and that I will at all times
and that I will at all times
truly, impartially, and faithfully perform my duties
truly, impartially, and faithfully perform my duties
in accordance with Georgia laws
in accordance with Georgia laws
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Okay, this is the second part of the official oath. I do further solemnly swear or affirm
I do further solemnly swear
that I am not the holder of any unaccounted for
that I am not the holder of any unaccounted for
public money due this state
public money due this state
or any political subdivision or authority thereof,
or any political subdivision or authority thereof,
that I am not the holder of any office of trust
that I am not the holder of any office of trust
under the government of the United States,
under the government of the United States,
any other state, or any foreign state,
any other state, or any foreign state,
which I am prohibited from holding
which I am prohibited from holding
by the laws of the state of Georgia,
by the laws of the state of Georgia,
and that I am otherwise qualified to hold said office
and that I am otherwise qualified to hold said office
according to the Constitution of the United States and laws of Georgia,
according to the Constitution of the United States and the laws of Georgia,
and that I will support the constitutions of the United States
and that I will support the constitutions of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay. We have a second oath. It's a lot shorter, Mr. Juan. This is your loyalty oath. I, and state your name,
I, Alex Wan,
a citizen of Fulton County,
a citizen of Fulton County,
and being an employee of Fulton County,
and being an employee of Fulton County,
and the recipient of public funds for services rendered,
and the recipient of public funds for services rendered
as such employee, do solemnly swear and affirm
do hereby solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of Georgia.
and the Constitution of Georgia.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. All right. Congratulations. And I know y'all got a lot to do. So good luck, Mr. Juan. I wish you all the best. Okay. All right.
Ms. Robinson, I appreciate it. And before we get into the agenda, I just want to make a couple of quick comments. Number one is I just want to express that it is a deep honor to have been selected and appointed by the Board of Commissions to serve in this role and to work alongside you colleagues going forward. I recognize that these have been challenging times for the board and the department, but my one-on-one conversations with each of the directors up to this point, I'm really heartwarmed by the fact that we all have the same goal, and that is, we recognize we've been entrusted by the citizens and voters in Fulton County, and our job is just to make sure we're doing everything we can to deliver fair, accurate, and efficient elections. And I know that if we just keep that in our mind and use that as our guidepost, we'll be all right. I also want to thank everybody for the grace you've extended me in trying to get up to speed and up the learning curve this week. And I thank you in advance for the grace that I hope you'll continue to give me. I'm a hard worker. I'm a quick study, but it's going to take me a little bit of time. And all the help and guidance that y'all can provide me will be much appreciated. But again, I thank you for the opportunity to work with you, and I look forward to the days ahead. So with that, I guess we should go ahead and get started. I'll call the meeting to order officially. Want to acknowledge our fellow board members, Vice Chair Vernetta Keith Nurin, Mr. Mark Wingate, Dr. Kathleen Ruth, and Mr. Aaron Johnson. We're also supported by our staff, Richard Barron, as well as Mariska Bodison. So with that, the meeting is now called to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Colleagues, I have one small adjustment. Mr. Barron has an emergency that he's going to have to leave at about 10:40 for. So with that, I'd like for us to swap items 4 and 5 so that he will be here to walk us through the post-election assessment review. And then if he is gone by the time we hit the monthly operations report, he'll have someone from his staff do that. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Yes, Dr. Ruth, please.
Hi, Mr. Juan, congratulations and welcome to the board. I do have an agenda item that I'd like to add,
Okay.
And that is action to determine authority in the employment of the county election director. And it's very brief, but I'd like to add that to the agenda.
All right, so Dr. Ruth, we'd add that as item 7. Is that okay?
Yes, that's perfectly fine.
Excellent.
And do we need to make a motion for that or no?
All right,
Yes.
so there's a motion to amend the agenda to add item number 7, action to approve authority, presented by Dr. Ruth. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Ms. Nuridan has seconded that. All right, with that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. The agenda has been amended, so now I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve.
All right, there's a motion from Mr. Johnson. Is there a second? Second from Ms., was that Ms. Nuridan?
Yes.
Okay, All right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any, or raise your hand, any opposed? All right, the motion to approve the amended agenda is adopted unanimously. Next item on the agenda is communications and public response. I guess, Ms. Bodison, are you the one who tracks the public comment?
Yes, sir. And at this time, I have one public comment from Bridget Thorne.
Okay.
Ms. Thorne?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, I'm Mrs. Thorne, Bridget Thorne, a former 9-year precinct manager in Dominion Poll Tech. My concerns were ignored by Fulton County Elections when I was there, so I was fired and then I was slandered, and now I'm being investigated, all for being concerned about how Fulton County is running their elections. I listened to the Board of Commissioners meeting last week. Dozens of comments came in from concerned citizens, and I know dozens more that emailed that don't trust our elections. A majority of Fulton County residents do not trust or think that it was a fair election process. Personally, I used to think Fulton Elections was just inept with poor leadership. The hiring of poorly trained, uneducated, and inexperienced workers is intentional, so the leadership can do whatever it wants without questioning. I do not trust Fulton Elections at all. Yet we are silenced, we are muted. Nobody is listening to the citizens of this county. A partisan board of commissioners is not listening. They ignore emails and comments. Mr. Wang, I truly do wish you would uphold your oath that you just took. Like Ms. Nuridan, I hope that you will finally listen to us. We need new leadership to restore faith and trust in our election process. Without it, we are not going to have that fair, accurate, and efficient system. I please hope that you will no longer ignore the emails and ignore the public comments. Thank you.
Ms. Thorne,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Bodison, were there any others?
No, sir.
All right. With that, that concludes the communications and public response section of our agenda. The next item under old business is approval of minutes. First one is the minutes from the regular meeting on February 11th. Colleagues, you received that in your packet that was sent out. Are there any comments, edits, or amendments to the minutes as presented from February 11th? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as presented for the regular session.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. I believe that was Mr. Wingate and Mr. Johnson. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, those minutes are approved. Colleagues, in terms of the executive session, I received those from Mr. Johnson via Ms. Carol Cooney this morning. I'm not sure what the protocol has been in terms of those. If I should forward those to all of y'all, the board members.
Well,
Yes, Mr. Johnson, please.
She did. And I was going to
Okay.
bring that up to make sure everybody saw them. She forwarded them to us, I believe, to everyone this morning. Generally, the chair would just send them directly to the board members.
Okay. Colleagues, have y'all had a chance to take a look at the executive session minutes, and are there any corrections or amendments to that?
Yeah, I just received that this morning. I haven't had a chance to review it.
Okay. Colleagues, is there unreadiness in terms of approving those until you've had a chance to take a look? Do we want to wait on those? Well, first of all, is there a motion to approve? And if not, then we'll table it until the next meeting.
I will say this, it's pretty straightforward. I did get it thanks to Mr. Johnson taking that action, and I don't see anything in there that would prohibit from not approving the executive session meeting minutes. So I would make that motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. Wingate has made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I would second it.
Seconded by Mr. Johnson. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have one.
I abstain.
Okay, we have it. And Dr. Ruth, were you voting to abstain or?
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain. Just haven't had a chance to review. I would really love the opportunity to do that before making a vote. Yeah.
And obviously, since I was not part of that, I'm going to abstain as well. So with that, okay, this is a Robert's Rules test for me, I'll have to admit. So a 2 yes and 3 abstention, I think still passes. Is that correct? The
No,
abstention.
sir.
No,
No.
no, we have to have 3.
Okay. Oh, got it.
So
Perfect.
it'll be held until the next meeting.
Just table it to the next meeting. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'll move to table the minutes to the next meeting.
All right. There's a motion from Ms. Norton to table. Is there a second for that?
Second.
All right. Dr. Ruth is seconded that. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to table, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes unanimously. Okay, the next is the special meeting on February 16th. Colleagues, if you've had a chance to review those minutes, are there any additions or amendments to that set of minutes? All right, if not, is there a motion to approve those?
I make a motion to approve those minutes of February 16th, 2021.
All right, motion from Mr. Wingate. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion on that? On the motion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. That takes care of our, it takes care of our old business except for item 4, which we switched. So let's go ahead and move into the post-election assessment review. Mr. Barron.
Good morning. Could we get that up on the screen, please?
Yes, sir.
This is something that the staff and I have been working with the county manager's office, chief financial officer, chief operating officer, county manager, number of other departments were involved after the June election. And much of this post-election assessment and plan, there were drafts that were being formulated, developed towards the end of last year, and then at the beginning of this year, we were able to get all the drafts completed. And can you go to the next slide, please? And so much of this is the result of work by my staff and I working with the county manager's office as a look forward to matters that we're going to take up this year and in advance of the primary season next year. So we were tasked with evaluating the current operations, providing tools, resources, support, and recommendations for the department. And this group worked directly with us to facilitate the remaining of the 2020 cycle and then looked forward towards 2021 and 2022. And next slide, please. There we go. So in 2020, what we accomplished, we made sure that we had election day poll technicians at every polling place. We hired security for every precinct on election day. We developed some data reporting systems, especially with the help of the strategy office. They had some tools available that they were able to take statistics from, and we were able to then put that information to use. There were some resources that we didn't have access to before. We developed a poll worker staffing plan for each election, increased funding to cover the cost of staff, election operations, and equipment. We implemented the mobile application. We have had, I think, more than 10,000 people download the application for Fulton Votes. We implemented a elections call center. We actually had 2 full-time call centers from August on, and that is something that will be in the recommendations to go forward to establish a shared permanent one with the county. We had, of course, the enhanced early voting communications plan. We worked with external affairs on that. We had a major staffing response in the midst of the COVID-19 outbreak. We used staff from county staff that was on admin leave, in addition to using some of our vendor partners to make sure that we staffed. And then we also had community partners such as Leadership Atlanta, ACLU, and Secretary of State, in order for us to have poll workers last year. We had the expansion of absentee ballot drop boxes, the implementation of a work plan to more efficiently process absentee ballots, and that culminated in the final part of the year, moving the entire operation to Georgia World Congress Center, which gave us a linear progression all the way through that process. We identified alternate space to accommodate work processes, and then we had the deployment of mobile buses. The average wait time on election day in our elections from August through January was less than 15 minutes, and we had a 98.8% voter satisfaction rating when voters were surveyed throughout the county on election day and during early voting. A lot of the things that we learned, the recommendations that are being made by the Registration and Elections and the county manager's internal working group, they are divided into 4 different categories. They're operational, administrative, education and outreach, election central, and legislative. Next slide, please. Well, many of these recommendations came as a result of the weekly meetings, the discussions that we had. We've already developed an annual automated elections project plan. Some of these plans we began implementing towards the end of last year, creating this poll worker staffing plan, implementation of poll worker university for election day and early voting staff, automating poll worker AMS entry and pay. It takes between 20 and 25 minutes to add one new poll worker into AMS. So we're working on a way to automate that, to cut that process down. We want to try to come up with some ways to enhance poll worker and election technician screening process. We'll have to go about that with our vendor partners, and as well as trying to figure out a way to get the best poll managers possible into those positions. Providing absentee ballot security transport, document absentee ballot and signature verification process, document the polling location selection process, create an equipment inventory and tracking process. And there will be more about that in the operations report. We are underway with evaluating a new inventory system. We want to revise the elections checklist, and we did much of that before the January election, and we're expanding also the number of check-in sites that we'll have on election night. And that will be more in the operations report. We want to revise those checklists for the poll managers to ensure that we get everything we need. And one of the things about that is also with more check-in centers, we'll have more space for poll workers to make sure all their paperwork's complete on election night. Restructuring and reorganizing the department. Part of that will be moving, once the deputy director is hired, we will move absentee by mail underneath the deputy director. That will be one of the ways we'll restructure it. We'll have an absentee, and that's one of the things the BRE recommended last year, as well as one of the task forces, was to have a separate absentee department. We'll be able to take care of that this year. Develop more contingency plans. We were able to use our mobile buses on election day in November, December, January. That was one of the contingency plans if we had any polling site that had issues. And we had in December, for example, Legionnaire's disease at 2 schools. So we moved the buses to those locations on election day, so we didn't have to to go about trying to locate new polling places at the last minute. Create a shared permanent call center, develop grant tracking procedures, develop standardized operating procedures. We'll expand on the ones we have, and we'll do an audit to make sure that those procedures are sound, and develop a set of those that will govern whatever we do going forward. We'll make the election budget process standard, and develop a more in-depth departmental cross-training program. We have some of it, especially in voter registration, between different staff duties, but we've talked about getting people from different departments to spend a couple days in another position, so that we have a better understanding of how their job affects others, and that we have backup. As far as education and outreach, we need to come out of the pandemic with a robust voter education program to use those buses as part of that. And so once we get out of the pandemic, we want to make sure we've got a good voter education program developed in order to move forward, because it was cut short last year after we had so many voter education events between January and March. And then from there, the remainder of the year, most of it took place virtually. One of the big things, and is that I've stressed since last summer with the county, is to build or to find a space for a centralized election warehouse and our offices. And part of that will be to make sure that we have everything located in one space, and that is underway. There are also, as far as legislative recommendations, I think the county itself wanted some of the legislative priorities the county had were to modify the absentee ballot request deadline, implement vote centers, codify poll watcher observer rights and responsibilities, implement election worker security plan and penalties, and defend mobile voting centers, drop boxes, and Sunday early voting. Next slide, please. So the most critical of these recommendations that I identified was the review of the departmental leadership structure. That is necessary going forward, not only just the hierarchy, but the people that are in place. Doing Elections Central, which I spoke about. We need to make sure that we have our call centers, our absentee by mail processes, all of our offices, everything in one place, our warehouse operations. All of that is key to going forward, because if we can have linear progressions, for example, with the absentee process, it's going to be much easier with chain of custody, whereas we had up to 6 locations, Government Center, the Darnell Center, and State Farm in some of the earlier elections. By January, when we had the entire area at Georgia World Congress used, we were able to streamline all the processes and make them much more transparent and easier to manage. When we had so many different locations we were working out of, we were, I would think, our management structure, the way it was with the few middle managers that we have, it was harder to supervise all of those areas as much as we wanted to. We need to make sure that all of our operating procedures are streamlined, efficient, audited, so that we can bring a consultant in, have them review what we do, and get feedback, and then implement any of the changes that need to be made. The automated elections project plan, that's been completed. We are getting close to implementing an inventory and tracking system. And of course, then we also want to defend voter rights and accessibility without restrictions. And that would be the end. We have a lot of timelines set for many of these recommendations, and we're working on making some of the tentative timelines more firm. For example, with regard to Elections Central, we want that, the goal for the county is to have that up and running by June of 2022. We're hoping for that sooner, but that will be a game changer for the department to have everything in one place with regard to Elections Central, because we'll have our call center space, our tabulation area, the division office space, the ballot storage area, loading docks, observation and media area, vote review panel work area. All of that will be in one building, and we're looking at 300,000 square feet for that. And from there, I can take any questions.
Okay, are there questions from my colleagues? All right, if not, right, Mr. Barron, I'm going to jump in and ask a couple of questions here as well. I mean, I recognize that this is kind of a high-level presentation of, for example, the 29 recommendations. But then each one, I would assume, has a little more granular in terms of, in order to accomplish this, X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3 have to take place. So has that kind of been developed? And then more importantly, what I'm going to request is that for the next meeting, if this becomes our roadmap, I think what would be helpful for everybody, including the public, would be somewhat of a Gantt chart that says, okay, in the first 30 days, kind of month by month, so that we can track and make sure, first of all, that the timeline is reasonable for each one of them. You also can tell which ones are higher priority than others, and then we can track it as we go that, yeah, we're hitting this milestone, or no, we're not. Is that available now, or is that something that we can work on?
With the timelines that we have for each one of these recommendations, we're going to add those into the project work plan. Now that's the next step. Some of these are already underway, and then some of them, if they aren't underway, are ready to go. We're developing some of those. We have to we might have to issue RFPs in a couple of instances, and then with regard, for example, to changing the department hierarchy and organizational structure, that would be something that we'll have to work with the Board of Commissioners on. So, but yes, for the next meeting, we can have the timeline set out with that project plan and supply it to the board.
Yeah, because I think that is going to kind of be key to addressing some of the concerns that have been brought up. I think the set of recommendations is good. It's just now how we're going to roll this out.
Correct.
That way, everybody can be on the same page in terms of understanding the status of each, what percentage completion, and then also how we're prioritizing them, and then how the different pieces that different stakeholders have been raising, which part of the puzzle it fits into, so they can continue to track that as well.
Yes, and one other thing that we did was we held 3 roundtables with poll managers recently, and so we received a lot of good feedback from that, and we'll try to incorporate some of that feedback as well into this plan in addition.
I have to admit, that'll be a really helpful kind of exercise for me in getting up to speed as well as just really understanding the mechanics of this in terms of mapping this out. I also did want to acknowledge that one question that was that was raised in terms of the election satisfaction statistic that you pointed out, the 98.8. Can you give us a little more background on how that was conducted?
Well, surveys were done in all of were done in each of the polling locations, both early voting and on election day. The majority of that 98.8 satisfaction rate, usually what would happen in most cases in the polling places is that the line managers or the technicians were conducting those on the iPads that they had, and voters were filling those out, and anyone that wanted to participate.
That was on site. Did we think about using the app? Does the app have the capacity to do something like at Fulton Votes?
We can. That's something that I can get with external affairs on too, because that's a good idea, and to make it I guess to integrate that into the app for future use, and it might be a way to promote the app more too in the polling places to get more people to download that. We were using Qualtrics, and normally in past elections we have used paper forms, but this year I believe we started it in August with Qualtrics in the polling places.
And again, I also want to acknowledge a couple other comments and questions regarding, and I think it'll get folded into when we talk about the poll worker screening process as well as the poll manager. So not ignoring those questions, just acknowledging where they're going to fit into the continued work. Other questions from my colleagues on this?
Mr. Chair, I do have none for Mr. Barron, but I do have a question for you. Did you receive a copy of this automated elections project plan?
I have not seen that. I don't believe I have yet. And I was going to ask for it in my follow-up from this meeting.
Yeah, we haven't sent that out yet, but we can send it out as it is right now, and then we'll incorporate the rest of these timelines later.
Madam Vice Chair, do you have any other questions, or is that
Yeah.
acceptable? Okay.
What was the
Rick.
total? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Ruth. Go ahead.
What was the total number of participants that were surveyed, voters that were surveyed?
I would have to get with Bridget Bailey on that. She compiled those for us. So, but I can get that for you.
So, but you're saying that the satisfaction was 98%,
98.8, yes.
but we don't know the total.
The total
population.
number that I don't off the top of my head know the total number, no.
And keep in mind, that is a voluntary situation, whereas you're not really going into the entirety of the Fulton voter population, and doesn't take into consideration complaints and other things that we have seen massive amounts of during the 2020 election process. So, yeah, I think in order to have a verifiable type of a solution to that, yeah, that's going to have to be recharacterized in its face.
So, Mr. Barron, you can provide at least more detailed information, kind of the number, the distribution of the responses.
I will get, and in fact, we may have shared one of those after the November election in detail with the detailed responses. So I'll go back and look for those. And then I'll get with Bridget and get the detailed responses.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Johnson, I see you're unmuted.
I was just making sure Dr. Ruth is finished. Yeah, okay. Rick, a couple things. So in your plan, one of the things that we had available to us was a tremendous number of county staff.
Yes.
That was able to help out. Now, I do recognize that we may not have the same level of need when it comes to our next elections, because, the dynamics are just going to be different. But in your plan, are you accounting for staff changes? And when I say changes, possible increases with your actual department, as opposed to relying on the other county staff?
We are going to have to rely on, we're going to have to bring in either more permanent staff, or we're going to be relying on supplemental staff, because I believe we had almost 100 people from other departments this year working for the department.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't sustainable going forward, because as the year goes on, more and more of those people will be back permanently in their positions.
Right. So, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm sure that I was sure that you were, but also, how do you think the legislative changes? Now, granted, I do understand that the legislature hasn't passed anything, but they will in the next couple of days. There are certain things that I believe will absolutely happen and some things that may or may not happen. But are you contemplating some of the changes in your plan that may happen?
Yes.
Including
Well,
us no longer being able to use the mobile voting units, the reduction of the drop boxes and things of that nature?
yeah, we have, I mean, we have an asterisk by some of these, of course. I mean, absentee by mail could get cut back significantly. And if so, we are making plans to possibly increase the number of election day polling places as well as the number of early voting locations. There are a number of things that we're going to have to look at if absentee ballot drop boxes are restricted, if grant funds in the future are restricted, if the buses are prohibited. There are many changes we might have to make going forward.
And lastly, how much of this you think can be implemented before the elections this year? You know, we have city elections all over the county.
What I'll do is make sure all the tentative timelines that we have drafted that aren't in here yet, I will get those out by the beginning of the next week. A lot of these things are underway, and many of them will be done before the November election. A lot of them are enhancements or refinements to our current processes. And what we're hoping to do, especially, you know, the inventory system, bringing in a consultant, going through a lot of our, revamping training, doing cross training, those things are there. A permanent call center. The counties already has moved on from our call center to another couple call centers in which they're doing services. And I think those are just going to be available to us as time goes. And I think some of the things that we implemented last year, we're going to develop more detailed plans for some of those things that are already in this plan. I think what we needed to do was get out of that election cycle so that we could actually clean up from the election and then sit down and get to work on some of these things.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Johnson, I appreciate those two sets of questions. I wanted to say that's why I think the Gantt chart will be very helpful, because then we can see each one of the tasks and how it's, there's a horizontal bar that goes out and says April, May, June, July, so we can see which ones will be done or anticipated to be done before November's elections. And then also, colleagues, if you didn't see in yesterday's AJC, there was a list of bills pending in the state legislature that would impact us. And what I'll ask staff to do is that by the next meeting, the ones that were actually passed by both chambers and signed, to do an analysis for us. So if this passed, these are the operating implications for our department, as well as potential impacts to the work plan that we were just going through. So yeah, there are a lot of moving parts, but I think so long as we're all staying ahead of it or on top of it, we'll be as best informed as we can be. Mr. Wingate, and then Dr.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question to this, I think as Ms. Nerdin brought up, we're looking at this plan over a screen for the first time. I know that's my issue as well. I think the bigger question is for this board is, what is our role in this? We have not been, to my knowledge, at least I know I personally haven't been involved in any of this kind of planning process, let alone any discussion regarding any of this. So I think as a board, a 5-panel board, we just need to be sure what our role is in this, if any. Or do we just take, what's being put out here as being that's the way that it's going to be done? And I just think that very quickly we need to get our arms around, whatever that may be. Not saying that there's flaws in this plan. Haven't had a chance really to look at the substance of it, as mentioned by Ms. Nerdin. So I think that we probably ought to have some pause here to make a determination as to, what the way forward with this is. That it seems like that there is an awful lot of planning and structuring being done without this particular board involvement. We've got a lot of county officials who are not election officials that seemingly are adding, much of the content to this as anybody. So I'm not saying that's wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that's fine, because all the help we can get from everyone, I think is pertinent. But I do believe that the board, before a lot of this stuff, is going forward, and Mr. Chairman, as you suggest that there will be timelines put to this so that it's measurable, is certainly something that should be done regardless in anything that's being done that is progressive in its nature. So I would just hope that we as a 5-member board do get more heavily involved in the structuring of this going forward. Thank you.
I agree, Mr. Ringley. I mean, that's the approach I'm taking as well, is that, I think I'm seeing this for the first time, except for what was presented at the commission's office. But yeah, that's our charge. It is to oversee the operations process and make sure we have our buy-in in terms of what that plan looks like before we get into implementation. So I'm going to recognize Dr. Ruth, then Vice Chair Nurdin.
Yes, and along with that, I think it's important that we see an organizational chart, especially if there's a lot of restructuring. Even if folks have not been hired, you can still show vacant positions and what those positions would entail. And I think that would be very important for us to see as a board, in addition to this plan. I did have a question about the role of Happy Faces. And I know that the department has used them quite a bit in the past, and wanting to know if there is a plan to phase them out with using more county employees.
Mr. Barron, is that something you can speak to, or someone else from the staff?
Yeah, well, if we can get more permanent staff, of course we will. But we, at this point, sorry, Mr. Wan, I had this.
All right, Mr. Barron, you're breaking up on us.
Is a staffing firm that we've put since 2015, and I think
Mr. Barron, I think your connection is we're not able to hear you. All right, Dr. Ruth, we're going to have to apparently put a pin in that, but let's make note of that outstanding question about Happy Faces, because I do see some comments in the chat about that as well. Dr. Ruth, did you have anything else? So as we wait for.
No, that concludes my questions.
Vice Chair Nurdin, and then Ms. Ringer.
And then I think I saw Mr. Wingate as well.
Okay.
Ms. Nurdin, you're next.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask, since this board voted to recommended to terminate Mr. Barron, I wonder between February 11th and to date, who is he reporting to? Do you know that, Chairman Wan? Because they created the report, they've had discussions about elections, and is that the county manager? I was just wondering. He's reporting to someone, and I was hoping we can get just a little clarity around that.
Yeah, I do not have a definitive answer.
If the question is, we've been working with the county manager's office, but we aren't reporting to them at all. I think what that work group did was allow us to there are so many departments that are involved in running an election. We have to coordinate every election. We have to coordinate with departments from police to DREAM, to the
to the libraries for early voting. Almost every single department is involved with the election. So what this work group did was allow us to come together in a weekly meeting and collaborate in a more direct way rather than in the way we did in the past. And I think everything that we had happen in June just required us to go forward in that type of manner. The county manager's attitude has always been that they are there to support us and that the department will make the decisions. This draft plan, we came up with that in conjunction with them so that we could kind of codify a lot of the things that we want to do going forward. And then we wanted to present it to the board. Part of what Mr. Wingate talked about with the timelines and such. We're getting all of those timelines together, and I can share all of those timelines with the board and in what's called Achieve It. We can also put it into more of a Gantt chart if that's would make it easier visually, but I will provide that with the board, the timelines to the board. With regard to Happy Faces, I'm not sure if you heard my answers to that, but if we can get more permanent staff, it's better for the department to have staff that has a vested interest in everything that we do. The supplemental staff that we've had from Happy Faces, they've been a good partner over the years from 2015. I think last year stretched their, I think everybody's resources were stretched last year. We were thankful to the county for providing admin or staff that was on admin leave to us. But the more permanent staff we have, the better. But we would have to get approval for that from the Board of Commissioners. And there are plans for more staff. At what scale we would need to study to see how many more staff we would have to keep on year round in order to reduce our reliance upon supplemental staff. But a lot of our supplemental staff, especially in the warehouse, they've been coming back for 10 to 15 years. And we have relied on them significantly. And that's why leading up to the November election, when we had the coronavirus outbreak in the warehouse, it hit us so hard as we had a lot of institutional knowledge go away in a matter of a few short weeks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Barron. I think the question to the chair was, since February 11th, when the majority vote of this body recommended your termination, I saw a press release from Fulton County saying that your job was still in place. So I wonder who called you, and since that time, who have you been reporting to? You, not your department, you as the election supervisor.
Who have I been reporting to?
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, I still report to the board. As such, it seems as though the Board of Commissioners voted last week regarding the termination. So until further notice, I'm still the director.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Wingate have another question before we go to Ms. Ringer?
I think, no, thank you. I think I got mine answered by myself. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Ringer and then Mr. Johnson. Or Mr. Johnson, you want to go ahead?
Oh, I just wanted to point out that from my understanding, and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're still on, but this is a continuation from some plans that were created back in July. And I agree with Mr. Wingate, the board should be conferred with, and maybe even we need to consider, as we're moving forward, making sure the board has buy-in to the end of, whatever the recommendations are. But this is a continuation of the meetings that started back in July after the June meeting. And I think maybe a part of the disconnect is that it's been going on consistently since then, and we kind of put it in motion. And I think I agree, maybe it's time to bring the board back into the fray, just so the board is consistently updated and has direction as to which way we would like for it to go.
Yes, a lot of these came in. I mean, a lot of these ideas are a combination of from what the Board of Registration and Elections suggested, the department suggested, county manager suggested, the task force suggested. Some of these have been implemented partially, but they haven't been fully developed. And so a lot of this, and one thing that may be necessary is to do, I guess, have like a board work session where we can go over all of this in detail. And I think, and that might be the most productive way.
I would agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Ringer, are you still there?
Yes, Mr. Juan, I'm here. I think Mr. Johnson covered most of what I wanted to say, and to remind the board that this internal working group of Fulton County departments was in fact the second task force that Chairman Pitts had requested be put together. And I also wanted to advise the board that this is not unlike situations that the county has used in the past, and that back in 2017, when we had some issues regarding our tax digest, we had a similar group that came together with the various department heads that were involved in that process. They met on a weekly basis, and in fact, provided advice, assistance, resources, and recommendations. So as Mr. Johnson said, there has been a disconnect because of the time period in which this group had been meeting, but it does go back to Mr. Pitts's formation of task force and directing the county manager to have his staff assist.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Ms.
I just want to for clarity, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that the question had nothing to do with the answer Mr. Johnson gave or Ms. Ringer gave. The question was, or the task force, which we obviously needed because it was challenges in the department. So the task force were a response to a problem. And we definitely need the support, and I'm grateful to the internal task force. And I did receive Chairman Pitt's plan as well, which I did read. A lot of that was incorporated into what we were presented today. But I wanted to say specifically, just so the issues won't continue to be muddied by, is just that Mr. Barron, I wanted to know at the moment that the Board of Commissioners rejected our recommendation to terminate Mr. Barron, who did he report to after that point? Now he's saying he reported to this body that was determined that could not terminate his position. So he has to be accountable to someone. I think it's a fair question.
I'm sorry, Ms. Nurian.
That was my question. It had nothing to do with reports or when reports were generated.
Right, but Ms. Nurian, what?
Any reports or any of that? I appreciate the support for the work that was obviously done and needed. But I just wanted to say that I got a press release saying that an entity took over that responsibility for the management of the election supervisor, and that the recommendation of the board, that the Board of Commissioners took that authority away by rejecting the termination. So I wasn't sure. I know that there are going to be 2 studies done recommended by 2 Board of Commissioners to address that issue, but that was in fact removed from this board as to his oversight. Because by majority vote, this board recommended his termination. So I respect the Board of Commissioners. They voted their conscience just like I did on February 11th. I just wanted to know that we have to have some type of chain of command. And if it's not the Board of Registration and Elections, then we have to kind of figure that out first before we do anything. So and I know that's going to go back to our point that that maybe later on the agenda, but that was my question. If the Board of Commissioners is saying, hey, we are the better entity to manage Mr. Barron, then so be it. If they are legally within their right to do that, and I think Ms. Ringer, or maybe, I don't know, whomever is suggesting that they are legally within their right to manage the election supervisor, then I just think that should be, back to Mr. Wingate's point, we have to know, why are we here? What are we here for? So that I just wanted to know, it had nothing to do with whether or not I didn't appreciate, or because I'm really grateful for the community group and the internal group and Chairman Pitts's recommendation plan that he sent to the board a week or two ago, and some recommendations that he saw that department obviously needed. But I just thought that it's a fair question, and maybe Mr. Johnson has an answer to that. I don't know the answer. Maybe Ms. Ringer can answer it. Maybe Mr. Barron.
Well, just Mr. Chair and Ms. Nuridan, we were in the queue to speak, not responding to your question. We were still we were having a conversation about what Mr. Wingate. So I don't want you to think that I was muddying, but my response was to something Mr. Wingate, and I think Ms. Ringer's comment was as well. It wasn't directed to what you were talking about.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Wingate, you had a comment?
Yeah, I would, ask the indulgence of this board to look at, the basis of a lot of what's being discussed is a result of the consent order of the SEB following the June primary. That, I think, in its face, was a huge directive in terms of the areas that needed to be thoroughly addressed, by the board and the elections department. So a lot of, I think, what has been worked on, and justifiably so, is that there has to and will become a day of reconciliation on that consent order. And correct me if I'm wrong, as memory serves me, it's a $50,000 potential penalty to the county. If in fact there is some decision that's not, we have not abided by and fulfilled the requirements of said consent order. So I think, as all of us going forward is, and again, please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that there's been any settlement to that consent order, which again is fundamentally driving the practice here.
I can respond that there has not been I'm sorry. There has not been a resolution of the consent order. I believe outside counsel that helped negotiate the consent order will be in touch soon and may present some information. However, from our perspective, every requirement of the consent order was met.
And Mr. Wingate,
that's from whose perspective, Ms. Ringer?
From our office and Mr. Samuels, from your attorneys.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Wingate, I will say that they've been in touch with me, and the timeline is for our April meeting that there would hopefully be a proposal to resolve that and move forward from that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think my takeaways from this is I do think there's some outstanding questions, particularly from the presentation around the survey instrument that was done, and hopefully we can have a follow up on that at our April meeting. I think the notion of a work session or for this board to be able to take a deeper dive into the recommendations and edit and comment as we based on y'all's experience or our experience, will be a good one. I do think that it is our role to help set those established priorities and monitor and guide that. But Mr. Wingate, I hear your question, and to the extent that I can research that and affirm that we have that responsibility and charge, I will. And then also, I think I've received Vice Chair's question around the reporting question, which I will follow up with as well. I mean, I know that statutorily, nothing has necessarily changed from the enabling legislation that creates our Board of Registrations and Elections. But I hear your question and concern about operationally what the implications from the Board of Commissioners action may have on that. So I have that on my list to follow up with as well.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Is there anything else from this presentation that needs to be just added to that list of follow up on? Oh, all right. If not, then let's go ahead and close that out and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the monthly operations report for February 2021. And Mr. Barron, you were going to designate someone to, is that Ms. Williams that's going to be presenting this to us?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning and congratulations, Chairman. And good morning, members of the board. I will be presenting the Elections Division portion of the operations report. In preparation for the upcoming November 2nd election, the municipalities have been forwarded information packets that included the projected budget, proposed advanced voting locations, and a timeline of documentation due dates. The municipality contribution portion is pending revision. We are conferencing with legal to make a contribution adjustment valid from a resolution passed in 2019. The municipalities will receive the revised information as soon as it is confirmed. For polling locations, all polling locations to be involved in November election have been contacted to confirm availability. We have requested the confirmation from the locations this month, and we will present any necessary proposed polling locations changes to the board in April. For check-in locations, we are seeking 2 additional locations to serve as check-in sites. This will allow us to decrease the number of poll managers assigned to one location and expedite the check-in process. The entire check-in process is being reorganized for improvements. For advanced voting, we are working to ensure advanced voting locations are evenly distributed throughout the county. The proposed sites include requested sites from the municipalities. The proposed advanced voting locations for the November election will be presented to the board for approval at a later date. Poll worker training, the elections officer position interviews were conducted. The candidates selected will begin work later this month. Once the new hire is on board, poll worker recruitment and training will be reorganized for improvements. For the election preparation center, equipment and supplies, staff is completing inventory of equipment and supplies. We are seeking an inventory system and have you demo presentations from vendors. A vendor has been selected and we are working with purchasing and IT to complete the purchase. And this concludes the Elections Division Operations Report.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Ms. Williams on the report?
Good job, Ms. Williams.
All right. If not, we'll continue on with our agenda. We're now into item 7, which was the added item requested by Dr. Ruth. So Ms. Dr. Ruth.
Chairman,
Chair.
Yes.
that does not conclude the monthly report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You still have the administration and the registration division.
My apologies. Do I get a newbie pass on that?
Absolutely.
All right. Please continue.
Mr. Jones?
Okay. Good morning, board. I'll be presenting the registration division report. At this time, the voter registration division are processing voter registration application and indexing the ones that we were receiving. As of February 1st, we have 856,462 registered voters. And out of that one, 818,722 are active voters. We received 5,695 voter registration applications, which is usually a lot less than what we normally would receive. Normally, we would receive around 20,000. I've reached out to the Secretary of the State to see why there are very few DDS's applications coming in. So that's where the lag is. We're not receiving as many DDS applications that we normally have. Today, we've received a total of 17,938. Out of that one, 11,105 are new applications. During our processing, we had removed 235 felons, and 3,270 have been transferred out of the county. 1,008 have been removed because of death. Finally, board, we did not have any deputy registrar trainings or classes as of yet. We had 87 TVICs. A TVIC is a voter ID card that is given to a voter who needs ID present. That would conclude my report. If there are any questions, I'm here to entertain them.
Questions for Mr. Jones? All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. Was there the administration section?
Yes, it is. Good morning, board.
Good morning.
Mr. McLeod. Well, along with all the other divisions and Mr. Barron, we have been constantly attending Zoom meetings with either ourselves as managers, with the county manager strategy team, with HR. They have had liaison updates. We have had the dedication and commitment from the finance division and the purchasing division with really trying to take care of all of the 2020 outstanding invoices that we still have that we need to pay for. So we have really had their support with working with us, and we really truly appreciate that, especially with the grants. So, you know, they have funded us through the general fund, through the grants that we had approved, as well as the CARES. So we're working through all that and reporting to the county manager for the Board of Commissioner reports to them of any outstanding invoices and where we stand from that, especially our project management updates on elections. So they have really been supporting us, and we've been working closely with them with that. The other thing, we have 2 remaining positions open that we're trying to fill, and that's the Deputy Director of Registration and Elections, as well as the Voter Education and Outreach Specialist. So we'll be coming closely to really closing in and posting those positions for recruitment. Last but not least, just monitoring all the legislative bills that are affecting registration and elections. That's all I have.
Are there questions for Ms. McLeod? Yes, Mr. Wingate.
Good morning, Ms. McLeod. Hope you're well.
Good morning.
Quick question. As I recall, there was an additional request of $4 some million in grant money from CTCL. Has that been completed?
It was approved, and so we do have the funds. So we are still paying outstanding invoices, as well as Mr. Barron has requested certain equipment and training equipment for us to use the grant monies for.
Okay. At a time appropriate for you, can you update the board with the expenses that have been paid You have provided this on a couple of other previous occasions, and thank you for that. But I would like to see an update to that when it's time available for you
Sure.
to update us to where we're at, because I believe now, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me, the total grant money from CTCL is around $10.5 million.
The first grant was 6 million and some change, and the second grant was 4 million and some change. So you are absolutely right. It's around
Okay.
that.
All right, thank you. So if we could see that again at your availability,
Sure.
would be appreciated.
No problem.
Join Gate. Other questions for Ms. McLeod? All right. Is there anything else regarding the monthly operations report from any other staff member? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue on then to new business. I'm actually, the next thing on there is the review of the BRE meeting schedule. Colleagues, you should have received a calendar of the meetings for 2021.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I wanted to add to that was, it was brought to my attention by Jessica Corbett with regards to meetings being moved around with accordance with the Board of Commissioners. April 8th is a week of spring break for most families. And so there was, I guess, a request to push that meeting back a week, and the November 11th meeting to move a day because it falls on a holiday. And so my apologies for not catching that.
Okay, so the recommendation is that we move our April 8th meeting instead to April 15th.
No, it will be April 8th. So it'll be moved to the 15th. Right. Okay.
And then the November 11th meeting will be shifted to November 12th due to the holiday.
Correct.
Okay. Colleagues, are there any concerns or objections to those adjustments? Ms. Fulton, do we need to take an action on that, or is that just administratively set?
In most cases, there have been action. However, there was no action taken on this calendar. It was just agreed.
Okay, all right. So we do not need to take a vote on that.
Okay.
Is that, I'm asking, do we need to? Should we?
I think we should.
How about we take a vote just to make it easy?
Okay.
Correct.
Motion to approve the updated calendar.
All right, there's a motion from Mr. Johnson. It's a second from Vice Chair. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. I'll ask the staff to make sure that the adjustments are posted in the appropriate places for the public.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for sending us a copy of that too, Ms. Madison.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. So our last new business item is Dr. Ruth's action to approve authority. Dr. Ruth, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so given that we find ourselves in a unprecedented situation with regards to this board's authority in the employment and management of the county elections director, I would like to make a motion that we send a letter to the AG to evaluate who has the actual authority to manage our election employment.
Is there discussion?
I don't know if there's other discussion. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, so Dr. Ruth, are you gonna, you want to put that in a form of a motion on the floor, and then we can have discussion on that?
Sure. So I would like to make a motion that we send a letter to the AG to evaluate who has the actual authority as it relates to employment matters. Mm-hmm.
Is there a second to that? Seconded by the Vice Chair. All right, let's open this up for discussion. Did I see Mr. Wingate?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. again, I think it's been stated in this meeting prior, so I won't waste a lot of time with that. But yes, there is clearly a legal issue here that frankly, as the majority of the board did in fact vote to terminate Director Barron. That issue, I think, for the voters of Fulton County cannot totally go away until there is an authority that looks at this legally and then makes a determination as to whose authority it is, as just stated by Dr. Ruth. If indeed this goes without having any of that looked at by the Attorney General, in our opinions, then it just leaves open that Fulton County, one of 159 counties in this state, is operating differently than state law. So we're not trying to be legal experts on this, but yes, we clearly have sought the advice of outside counsel in this matter and feel it very important, not just for this particular grouping of board members, but for the ongoing nature of the Fulton County as well as other counties' Board of Registration and Elections. Otherwise, there is a precedent here that then becomes statewide an issue for every other 158 counties. And frankly, I just think that this is the correct time so that there is clarity as to whose authority this is, so that not only Fulton County can move forward, but the entire state and its other Board of Registration and Elections, as well as county registrars in some counties, the smaller counties, are operating on the same plane. So yeah, here forthcoming, there will be a letter action to the Attorney General asking for that assistance in making a determination as to level of authority and to whose authority it is in terms of the election director, election supervisor, and in cases of intent, the election superintendent. So I appreciate that, and just wanted to make sure that this information was in fact presented in the public domain as it should be, and that Fulton County voters know that there is some other action pending. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I did want to add that in Morgan County, the Morgan County delegation actually voted to give the Morgan County Board of Commissioners that power over who's on their election board. However, the delegation agreed. It was approved by the House, it was approved by the Senate, and it was made law for Morgan County. So, I would like to say that I do believe that there were errors in law here in Fulton. If the Fulton County delegation agrees with the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, there is an avenue. I do believe that what has transpired may be outside of the law, and that's why I support this letter. But I did want to say that, if they feel really strongly about it, they don't have, opportunity this session because crossover day was Monday to bring forth legislation. But it's a proper way to do it. So, instead of just saying, oh, it's unprecedented to be done in Fulton County for the Board of Commissioners to reject the recommendation and then call for 2 studies on a decision that it already made, just seems a little backwards to me. Generally, you do the study first and then you make the decision. But I just wanted to say that's why I support it, because there is a legal remedy for them that wasn't taken. And what's done is hurting Fulton County voters, I think, just kind of waiting to see ahead of the 2022 midterm elections it's just, I mean, Mr. Barron talked about bringing some of his plan online in the middle of the primary for the midterm elections. And what we saw in June is bringing a system online. I don't believe that we're going to ever be post pandemic. The pandemic is here, and we may, as humans, learn to live with it as we did with others in our history. But it could be a considerable amount of time before it's ever back to normal. But I did want to just share that. I definitely disagree with the Board of Commissioners politicizing this department. That's why I'm supporting this letter. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
And we can make the letter, a copy of the letter available to people to review.
Yeah, okay. I do have a question for the law department on this, and this is where my legal expertise limits will show themselves. So, I'm all for removing the cloud and the uncertainty around that. I think that serves everybody well, including the Fulton County voters, especially the Fulton County voters. But my question is, what ultimately is the purest path to that? Is it a letter from the AG, or is it ultimately a litigation that can then be decided by the Georgia Supreme Court? I don't know the answer to that, but I also don't want us to continue taking these interim steps when perhaps we just, ultimately need to get a decision by the final authority in the state. So, Ms. Ringer, I don't know if you have a response to that.
Well, the matter that has a two-step process, the legislation that put the two-step process in place for the recommendations to come from the BRE and up to the Board of Commissioners is a matter that was adopted by the Georgia General Assembly. It's a local act that impacts Fulton County and no other county. Mm-hmm. There is a means by which the Board of Commissioners could undertake to change the local act, but that requires a specific process. I believe that is the intent of the matters that are coming forth both from Mr. Ellis and Mr. Arrington on the Board of Commissioners to determine if the Board of Commissioners are have any appetite for trying to change the local act. The other way to change the local act would be to have the Georgia General Assembly do it, which, as Ms. Norden pointed out, crossover day has passed for this year, and so it is unlikely anything could happen this year. Well, not unlikely, it won't happen this year unless there's a special session or something like that.
Well, no, I appreciate that. But going back to my question, though, I mean, is a letter or an opinion from the AG the kind of—
I don't believe so, sir.
I'm sorry?
I don't believe an opinion from the AG would be sufficient because we have a local act that specifically applies to Fulton County that is on the books. A letter from the AG is not going to change the legislation that was adopted by the Georgia General Assembly.
Okay.
It may assist in getting folks to change the law, but I don't think it in itself would be dispositive of the issue.
Yeah, Dr. Ruth, in terms of, I know this is your motion, and I don't know if you have a thought on that. Again, I just want to say, I mean, I'm just as supportive of getting this cloud and getting some certainty around this. I'm wondering,
Yeah, it seems like we're kind of at an impasse,
yeah.
But at the same time, we need clarity. As you said, we need someone or an opinion, and what we're asking for is the opinion of the AG.
Yeah.
With regard to this, and hopefully that could steer support for this board. I personally feel like the legs of the board have just been kind of cut out from under us. Mm-hmm. And it's important that we get some clarity around what we can and cannot do as a board as it relates to the employment management of the director that is accountable, to us as this board, this body.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair, and then I have another comment or question.
Yes, thank you. So, if it's determined that this body isn't needed, then that may be that may be the answer. I don't support what Morgan County did. It's just, I just use that as a example that there is a legal process. I'm not a lawyer and don't profess to be one, believe it or not. I didn't think that any county ordinance would supersede state law, but based on Ms. Ringer, that is the case. So I think that's why we wanted that clarity from a state level authority to see. So, for instance, if the delegation and the Board of Commissioners, feel that they're the most comfortable, they're more comfortable with governing. Because right now, honestly, Mr. Chairman, I believe that the Board of Commissioners is governing the election supervisor, and now that I think of it, I'm not even sure if crossover day really matters as it relates to local legislation. I think it's if it's approved, then the House and the Senate approves it. If the local delegations agree, both delegations in the House and the Senate agree. But that may or may not be the case for Fulton County. So I don't know that, but just I don't want to, like I said, on February 11th, I think all 5 of us voted our conscience, including former chair, who I just want to say served this county well. And Mary Carey Cooney did a great job as chair, and I will say that. So I will miss her on this board and wish her well. But that's it. That's all I had to say, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Ringer.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify a few things. I believe Ms. Newton is right, actually, now that I think about it again, that you may have local legislation that could still be enacted without having gone through crossover day. So we referenced the passage in question as Fulton County Code section 14-42, part 1 of Fulton County Code, but it was enacted, it's just codified in Fulton County Code. It was enacted in 1989 via a local act of the General Assembly. So it is not county legislation, it actually is state legislation. Yeah. But also to go back, to the extent that Dr. Ruth is asking for clarity about the board's role, you may be able to get that from the opinion. I think it's a matter of what question you pose to the AG. So I can't speak specifically, but my response was with regard to in order to get rid of the local act that put in place the 2-step process of recommendation by the BRE and approval by the Board of Commissioners, that's what would need legislative fix by either use of the home rule powers of the Board of Commissioners or the General Assembly taking action. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you. Mr. Wingate, yes.
And I appreciate that's being stated here. Again, I believe that under these circumstances, that having the opinion of the Office of the Attorney General clarify this for everyone is certainly within the bounds of where and what we should be doing. I appreciate Ms. Ringer's comments, and that's the opinion of herself or perhaps the department, in Fulton County that is our legal department. But it still has the question and remains the question that the board in majority voted to terminate Director Barron. That was overruled by the Board of Commissioners. So there is an impasse there. I just believe that it is the correct thing to do is to, and we will forward this letter on to the Attorney General and let appropriate actions from that office, that state office, look at this. And I think as stated earlier, if in fact that is the law, then I have, and I don't believe any of the board members have any problem in following that. It's just that right now that still at least to me as one board member, is an unanswered question that I would like to have answered. And I don't know that we took a vote or need to take a vote on the forwarding of that letter that has been constructed onto the AG. And if not, we probably should do so. So that then, that vote can also be on record, and that the actions taken from there was that for that purpose. And then we'll await on whatever transpires coming out of the AG's office. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely want us to take a vote on this one. I will say though, I just want to caution us that, there's two potential scenarios that come down from this letter, right? One is that the AG's office affirms that the Board of Commissioners had authority to do what they did, or the opposite is true. And that's why I asked the question, if that be, if it has to actually then be enacted by law, or if we're just thinking that that opinion might change the posture of the Board of Commissioners, but we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But I guess I'm just not certain that an opinion is going to then automatically change everything, that there will be subsequent steps that will have to be taken, or decisions or that will to affect what the guidance is and what specific authority the AG has over this versus say like the Georgia Supreme Court. So I think that's on
Mr. Chair, yes, I don't think that you'll find any objection to what your comments are. And I think it also is clear indication that, yes, regardless of where a judgment or a decision may come down from the AG, that will potentially prompt other actions at the state level to occur.
Yeah.
And frankly, we'll share this letter. I don't think that there's any confusion, even inside the body of this letter, that that's not recognized. We're not trying to assess right and wrong here. We're trying to assess, let's get to, the lawful aspects of this. And then whomever that may want to challenge that or change it or whatever going forward will certainly, have the right to do so. And I think that's all that's here, because quite frankly, I believe that the majority opinion of this board is that right now that's unclear. We've had a side of this, frankly, and that has come entirely, and correct me if I'm wrong, any other board members, has come entirely from the Fulton County Attorney's Department. That's wonderful. But, again, there's another side to this, and all we're all we're taking action is that let's go to the Attorney General and let that office that represents this state form some judgment. Does it go to the Georgia Supreme Court? Who knows? We're just trying to say, before this goes any further, we're taking this action so that we can have another judgment. That's what this is about.
Do I infer correctly that y'all have some language that you've drafted, or there is a letter, or is this something that we'll need to craft together? I mean, obviously circulated among the board members for, since we'll be signing it as the board. Did y'all have something drawn up already?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll get with y'all on that then, and we'll figure out if this motion passes, then we'll figure out how to make sure that they get crafted and executed. Is there any other discussion on Dr. Ruth's motion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
I think that would be a roll call vote. Point of information.
We can certainly do that.
I would rather have it that way. If you don't mind.
No problem. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and do that. All right. All right. So Vice Chair Ridden. Is that a yes? Okay. Mr. Wingate.
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruth.
Aye.
All right. And I'm voting in the affirmative as well. So aye. And then Mr. Johnson had to sign off of the meeting. So that motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
All right. And yes, if y'all will get me that language at your convenience, we'll go ahead and get that underway.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now.
Great. Thank you. All right, that concludes our new business items. The next item on the agenda is executive session, but is there a need or a motion to go into executive session? All right, seeing none, are there any other matters that need to come before this board? All right, if not, then with that, that concludes our meeting. I'll officially adjourn this meeting at 11:38. Thank you for making my first meeting painless.
Yeah, great job. Thank you.
Welcome, Chairman Juan.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats. Thank you so
very
much.
Thank
Forward to
you.
working with y'all. Thank y'all. Have a great rest
Have
of
a great day, everyone.